And I just had to sit there. I read the chapter and I just had to sit there and like digest what I was reading. Hi everyone, my name is Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and today I'm coming to you with the mid-year freak-out tag. I had to do it. It's probably the most popular book tag on BookTube, so here we are. But before we jump into the actual tag, I'm also going to use this as like my mid-year stats video as well. So I'm just going to share with you some of my stats for the first half of my reading year. So far this year, I have read 124 books. I do not know how I have done that, but I have. And that works out to be about 43,537 pages. This is definitely by far my best reading year I've ever had for the amount of books. I've also had a really decent amount of 5 stars this month, and we're gonna get to that in just a second. I've had a pretty good reading year. I'm gonna say that's mostly due to the fact that I know what I like now, and I'm more likely to pick up books that I know I'm going to enjoy. This has been a constant this year. I am in my romance era, and romance is my most read genre. That has never happened to me either. I am usually a fantasy girly, and in June, I had a fantasy heavy month, so I think I'm starting to get back into fantasy, but right now, I'm a romance girly. So if you want to see my breakdown of my star ratings, it goes as follows. I've had 29 5-star reads, amazing, 50 4 stars, 32 3 stars, 11 2 stars, and 2 books that I did not rate because they were most likely nonfictions. This gives me an average rating of 3.8. I have no idea how many books I've DNF'd this year. I think that's also why I've had a better overall reading year. I'm getting better at DNFing books and not trying to force myself to read books I don't really want to read. So that has helped as well. At the end of the year, maybe I'll do a books I DNF'd video, but they're not calculated in this rating system. Anyway, that is my overall stats. So let's jump into the questions for the mid-year freakout tag. The first question is, what is the best book you have read so far this year? And that is very easy to answer because it was the very first book I read in 2023. It is still my top book of the year, and honestly, I don't know what could beat it at this point. I can't even foresee it. And that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I adore this book. I have been talking about it for the last 6 months. I read it, my first book of the year, wanted to start the year off with a 5-star. I figured Babel was a pretty safe bet. Did not know I was going to love it as much as I did, and certainly did not know that for the rest of the year, I would just be trying to keep up the high that Babel gave me. This book is dark academia, it's fantasy, it is so fantastic. The amount of research that the author had to do to make this book a reality is fantastic. The social commentary in this book, also excellent, and I enjoyed every second of this book. If you don't know what Babel is, please go read it. I think you'll love it. I highly recommend doing it as an immersion read though, because it does center around the translation department at Oxford University, and there's a lot of other languages in this book and the history of languages, and I think I would have struggled just physically reading this, and I think I would have been lost if I just had listened to the audio. I really think it's a book that really shines when you use both in tandem, and I will say that forever and a day. It follows Robin Swift. Robin Swift is a Chinese immigrant to England. When he is very little, his mother dies in China, and an English benefactor comes, takes him back to England in order to teach him and raise him up so that he can go to Oxford University and be a part of the translation department, where they do something called silvering, where they write words on silver and it basically makes magic. This magic is obviously very expensive to actually get, so it really only benefits the elite and the wealthy. So really the people who maybe need more things aren't getting the benefits of this. I just adored this book, absolutely loved it, fantastic. Will probably be my best book of the year. I honestly don't see it changing. For the best sequel I've read all year, I actually just read it. 2 days before the end of June and 2 days before the cutoff for this mid-year freakout tag, I finished Hellbent. I actually read Ninth House earlier in the year, 5-starred it, absolutely loved it, regretted waiting so long to read it until the cliffhanger. Then I was kind of glad I waited because I could go pretty much directly into Hellbent, and I did about a month later. However, if I loved Ninth House, I adored Hellbent. Hellbent is fantastic. This follows Galaxy Stern, or Alex Stern, and she is part of the Ninth House and the House of Lethe. They supervise the other secret societies at Yale and kind of control the magic and make sure that none of the secret societies are using magic in like a wrong way or in a way that could like hurt other people. In the first book, things happen. Lots of things happen, and people are using magic the way they shouldn't, and all hell breaks loose, basically. And this is a continuation of the cliffhanger from that book, so obviously I can't talk about anything that happens in this book because it would completely spoil Ninth House, but oh my gosh. The book was good, and I was really enjoying it, and I was gonna give it 5 stars already, but when I hit part 2 and everything came together and I started to see what was really happening, I had no idea that was going to happen, and I just had to sit there. I read the chapter and I just had to sit there and like digest what I was reading. It was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. Definitely my best sequel of the year. A new release that you haven't gotten to yet. Now I have a whole stack of pre-orders right over there that could work for this. However, I will just pick one of those, but really I could say any of them. But the one I've chosen is Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. I love Tessa Bailey. I've really fallen in love with Tessa Bailey's writing and just having a good time with their books. So I read Secretly Yours in February when it first came out. It is probably my second favorite Tessa Bailey book next to Window Shopping. Loved it, had a great time, almost gave it 5 stars, ended up kind of giving it like a high 4-star rating just because the third act breakup was not my favorite. But this is the sequel to that, following Julian's sister, Bree. Julian is our main male character in the first book, and this follows Bree, and she is in a marriage of convenience in this book to an ex-Navy SEAL. That is all I know about it. That's all I need to know, and I need to pick up this book. I'm actually really confused why I haven't already. I've been very busy doing things for like videos and vlogs, but I need to get this on a TBR very, very soon because I'm dying to see this story. I loved Bree in the first book. She's a very small character, but Bree and the Navy SEAL both make an appearance, so I already feel like I know the characters, and I cannot wait for this story. My most anticipated release for the second half of the year is In These Hallowed Halls. It is a short story collection of dark academia stories. I love dark academia, but that is not the reason it is on my most anticipated list. The reason is one of these stories is written by M.L. Rio. M.L. Rio wrote my favorite dark academia book of all time, If We Were Villains, and has written nothing else. That is it. It's the only release by this author, and it's my favorite dark academia book ever. This fall, I will get to read at least another dark academia book by my favorite dark academia author in a short story collection, and I'm so excited. And as a bonus point, Olivia Blake is also having a story in this book. I recently read The Atlas 6 and am about to read The Atlas Paradox. So that's pretty great too, because I've also learned to love their writing as well. There are other authors who have put stories in this book, and I'm sure they will be excellent as well, but I have not read from those authors. Really, the reasonings I'm picking this up is for M.L. Rio. But I will gladly read all of the other dark academia stories. But like, as soon as I found out M.L. Rio was releasing a short story, I knew this had to come. It had to come to me. I needed to read it. I needed to pre-order it. It needed to come to my person. My biggest disappointment of the year is probably Talk Bookish to Me by Kate Bromley. And the reason for this is it's been on my TBR for a really long time. I was really excited to pick it up for the first book in the Title Chains project, but the third act breakup was not even okay. Like, it was actually something that I don't think the couple could have actually gotten over, and it was kind of glossed over in the end, and I just couldn't get behind it. Plus, some of the advice that was being given as appropriate advice for women to give women was just a little disturbing to me. So unfortunately, it only got 2 stars. I was really looking forward to this book. I did like the writing style though, so I am still willing to give this author another try. But for this book, I was sadly quite disappointed with how it turned out. My biggest surprise, this was actually pretty easy. This year, I became a romance girly and I got a Kindle for Christmas. And I started down the road of Kindle and Kindle Unlimited. When I got Kindle Unlimited, I asked Neva and Crystal to recommend me KU Smutty books for a vlog, thinking I would not like them. I was wrong. I had a great time. It was fantastic, and it started me down a whole other journey. But I knew when I asked that Crystal was going to recommend me Ice Planet Barbarians, and I really felt like that was definitely something I would not like. Like, I was convinced. I was like, there's no way I'm going to like alien smut. Well, I was wrong. I was so wrong. And now I'm buddy reading the whole series live on the internet every second month with you and Leandra the TBR0. And we are having a fabulous time, an absolutely fabulous time reading blue alien smut. And you know what? I'm not sorry about it. I'm not sorry about it. I'm actually quite glad that this is my biggest surprise of the year. These books are so fun. The smut's pretty good. And also, there's a lot more sci-fi plot than I expected, way more than I expected. I love the characters. I love most of the romances. Ruby Dixon is my most read author of the year. I didn't put that in my earlier stats because it should be obvious considering I'm reading through this series fairly rapidly. But definitely my biggest surprise. I was not expecting to like Ice Planet Barbarians, and I actually really love it. Favorite new author has to go to Abby Jimenez. I read Part of Your World as part of Rom-Comathon. It was my only 5-star read of Rom-Comathon. I absolutely loved the way she crafted that romance, that characters, the communication in that book was top tier. The atmosphere, top tier, everything about it was great. And I have heard that's very consistent in their works, and I need to read more of them. I have since bought quite a few, and they are now on my shelves. So I will be reading more Abby Jimenez in the future, and that definitely is an author that stands out as an author that I tried this year and really could see me reading the entire backlist of that author. Had a great time with Part of Your World, and I've heard really great things about other books from people that I trust their romance opinion. So definitely was an easy answer for this question. Newest fictional crush. Newest fictional crush. This was actually not that hard either. A part of that Reading KU vlog that I did with Crystal where I met the Ice Planet Barbarians series, Neva recommended me the Witsex series. Neva had gone on and on about this series, and I was like, okay, I'll try it. I probably won't like it as much as you do, but I'll give it a try. I could not put this series down. I was only supposed to read the first book. I did read it for the vlog, and then I binged the other 2 within a week. Flew through those. The 4th book comes out at the end of August, and you best believe the day it lands on Kindle will be the day I read it. Like, I am not waiting. I need to read it. The cliffhanger from book 3 was a lot. In this, we have a reverse harem with the 4 Stone brothers, and we had a lot of discussions because when I started reading it, a lot of us started reading it. Neva had just read it about 2 weeks before I did. I read it, and then we ended up getting Crystal, Rainey, Brooklyn. We've had a lot of people read this series. Kelsey, a lot of people read it. And there were a lot of discussions of who was your favorite Stone brother, and it was very obvious to me that my favorite was Keelan. However, of course, I love all 4 Stone brothers, but Keelan is my top Stone brother and is my new fictional crush. There you go. If you haven't read the Witsex series, please check trigger warnings, but I highly recommend. For newest favorite character, I am just gonna put out every character that is in the Thursday Murder Club. I love this group of crime-solving seniors more than I ever expected to. The witty banter, the sarcasm, the mysteries themselves are really good. Their friendships, everything about this really random group of people is just fantastic. But I tried to pick one as my favorite character, and I can't. I love them all. I love Elizabeth, Joyce, Ron, Ibrahim, Chris, Donna, Bogdan. I would give my life for Bogdan. I would. So I can't pick one. It would be like picking my favorite child, but Of all the set of characters that I have fallen in love with this year, this is top tier. I love these characters so much. Honestly, that's what makes this book. If you're a character-focused reader and you just love a really great group of characters, this is going to be something you will love. For a book that made you cry, I could list so many books. I cry a lot at books. I'm a book crier. I mean, Love in Other Words had me tearing up this year. That's one that came to mind. But there was one book in particular, and this should be no shock because I think everyone who has ever read this book and who liked it did have an emotional breakdown reading this book, was Song of Achilles. I finally read Song of Achilles this year and I sobbed. Like, I did not just cry, I full on sobbed. I was heartbroken by the end of that book, absolutely emotionally scarred by the end of Song of Achilles. This is a retelling of Achilles. I'm not going to go into the details because that's basically what it is. But if you love beautiful writing, it's very lyrical writing, so keep that in mind. It is very historical feeling, so keep that in mind, because we did buddy read this, and that was the main critique from people who didn't like this book. But I loved it. It's probably going to be one of my top books of the year, and I had a full-on breakdown. Now, for the other side of the coin, a book that made me happy, that was actually pretty easy to pick too. I ended up picking By the Book by Jasmine Guillory. This is a contemporary romance Beauty and the Beast retelling. And the reason this made me happy is I am a very nostalgic reader. I love a retelling, and I loved the way this book did Beauty and the Beast. The Easter eggs to the original story were just amazing. The romance was great. I had a great time with this book, and just the whole time I was reading it, I had a smile on my face. Absolutely loved it. 5 stars, had a great time. Cannot wait to read the rest of this series, and we'll be doing that very, very soon. The most beautiful book I bought in the first half of this year is probably the same as what most people's most beautiful book they bought in the first half of this year, and that was Fourth Wing. We don't get sprayed edges in Canada very often. Actually, this is the first book I have ever owned that has sprayed edges. So Fourth Wing had to be my most beautiful book. I haven't actually read it yet, but it is beautifully sitting on my shelves, showing its beautiful dragon self to the world. The last question on this tag is books that you want to read by the end of the year, and that's basically every book I own, which is not possible because that's way more than I will be reading. Even if I read another 124 books, I can't read all the books that I own, but that's okay. I did go to my shelves and I did pick 3 that I would really like to get to in the second half of the year. I pulled them off my shelves, unlike all the other books, because I didn't want to pull every book that I was going to be talking about off my shelves. But I did for these 3 because where I'm putting them on as I want to read them by the end of the year, I'm going to put them on my TBR cart so that they're more in my face as a reminder that these were the books that I really did want to get to when I went and looked at my shelves. And they were The Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Lonnie Taylor, Strange the Dreamer, one of my favorite books of all time. And for some reason, I still have not picked up this series. Keep saying that I'm going to, but I think I'm intimidated just because I loved Strange so much. But here we are. Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is a favorite by so many people, and I know I'm going to love this, so I just need to get to it. And Counterfeit by Kristen Chen. Lots of people told me this is very Finley-esque, which is why it's on my TBR. Love Finley, so I think I'm going to love this. Whew, we did it. We made it to the end of the mid-year freakout tag. This is a very long tag video, but anyway, we have made it to the end. How is your mid-year going? Let me know your answers to some of these questions down below. If we have any of the same answers, I'd love to know that as well. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.